An entire Roman legion disappears. 6,000 trained soldiers gone. No bodies, no battlefield, no clear record, just a blank space in history. For nearly 1900 years, the fate of the Ninth Legion has remained one of Rome's coldest cases. History records that in the early 2nd century, one of Rome's most battle-hardened units, Legio IX Hispana, over 5,000 elite soldiers, simply vanished. Poof, gone. No grave, no final battle site, no clear explanation, just silence. The legend says they marched into the mists of Scotland to crush a rebellion, and were wiped out to the last man by fierce Pictish tribes. An entire Roman legion erased by so-called savages in a fog-covered, desperate last stand. It's a fantastic story. It's inspired novels, documentaries, blockbuster films. But what if that story is almost entirely wrong? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the disappearance of the Ninth Legion, one of the ancient world's greatest unsolved mysteries. And if you think you already know what happened to them, you're probably wrong. Today, we trace every clue, uncover every theory, and follow the evidence that finally reveals what really happened. This is the true story of Rome's most legendary disappearance. Before we uncover their fate, we need to understand their legacy. Legio IX Hispana wasn't some rookie unit. It was the old guard, a cornerstone of Roman imperial power. Most historians believe the Ninth was forged by Julius Caesar himself. They fought beside him during the brutal Gallic Wars, at the siege of Alesia, and in the bitter civil war against Pompey. They were with Caesar when he crossed the Rubicon. Afterward, they helped secure Roman rule in Spain, earning their title, Hispania. They fought through the chaotic civil wars of the late Republic. They served under Augustus. They stood on some of the bloodiest battlefields of the early empire. By the time they were sent to Britain in the 1st century CE, the Ninth were seasoned killers, disciplined, feared, and absolutely loyal to Rome. But Britain was no peaceful poster. The island was a boiling cauldron of Celtic tribes, furious at Roman rule, ready to resist with fire and steel. The Ninth, stationed at Eboracum, modern-day York, were placed directly on the empire's northernmost, most unstable frontier. Their time in Britain was anything but easy. In 60 CE, when Boudicca's rebellion exploded across southern Britain, the Ninth rushed south to relieve the burning towns. It was a disaster. Nearly half the legion was wiped out in a single catastrophic day. Their commander barely escaped with his life. The survivors limped back north, shattered, humiliated, forced to rebuild for years. And that long, bloody history in Britain is one reason the traditional myth of their disappearance, annihilated in the wild north, felt so believable for so long. By the year 108 CE, however, the Ninth had recovered and reestablished itself as the guardian of the empire's northern border, rebuilt, reforged. They were rebuilding fortifications, expanding the fortress at York, and actively patrolling the frontier. Then suddenly, the British record goes silent. No inscriptions, no monuments, no sign they were there after about 108 to 120 CE. Nothing. This silence became fertile ground for legend. The modern mystery of the Ninth Legion didn't begin in ancient Rome. It began in 1954. That year, novelist Rosemary Sutcliffe published The Eagle of the Ninth, a brilliant work of historical fiction. It follows a young Roman officer traveling into the wilds of Scotland to recover the lost eagle standard of his father's legion, the Ninth. The book was gripping, atmospheric, emotionally powerful, and it cemented an image in the public imagination. Noble, disciplined Roman soldiers marching bravely into the foggy north, never to return. Hollywood loved it. The story was adapted into films. Documentaries repeated it, and the idea took root. The Ninth Legion was wiped out by Scottish tribes around 120 CE. It was dramatic, cinematic, simple. But eventually, archaeology began to challenge that story. In the mid-20th century, archaeologists uncovered evidence showing the Ninth Legion was still active in York after 108 CE, later than was once believed. They were building structures, stamping tiles, and administrating the province. And then came the biggest problem with the traditional story. Roman historians wrote obsessively about military disasters. Rome recorded every major defeat, especially the destruction of an entire legion. These events were national tragedies, but regarding Britain, silence. Total silence. No Roman writer reported the loss of a legion in Britain in the early 2nd century. The silence is suspicious. So historians began to ask, what if the Ninth didn't disappear in Britain at all? Every great mystery has a clue that flips the case upside down. For the Ninth Legion, it was a simple piece of fired clay. At the Roman fort of Novi Omegas, modern-day Nijmegen in the Netherlands, archaeologists found roof tiles stamped with Legio IX Hisp, a clear mark of the Ninth Legion. And crucially, these tiles are dated to after 121 CE, more than a decade after the legion supposedly died in Scotland. This was the bombshell. The Ninth Legion did not vanish in Britain. They were alive, active, working on the Rhine frontier. The Nijmegen evidence changed everything. So why would Rome transfer a famous legion away from a turbulent frontier like Britain? The answer lies in Roman politics. Around 120 CE, Emperor Hadrian began a major shift in military strategy. He abandoned the expansionist campaigns of his predecessor, Trajan, and chose instead to pull Rome inward, consolidating the empire's borders. He built fortifications, reinforced frontier positions, and scaled back offensive operations. Hadrian's wall, stretching across northern Britain, was part of this sweeping defensive transformation. Once the wall was constructed, Rome no longer needed as many troops deep in Scotland. And the Ninth, rather than being destroyed, was almost certainly redeployed, perhaps to strengthen the Rhine frontier, perhaps to prepare for growing instability in the east. This fits perfectly with everything we know about Hadrian's reforms. So the Ninth wasn't wiped out in Britain. It was reassigned. But after Nijmegen, the evidence trail goes dark. After the early 120 CE, the Ninth Legion disappears from Roman records. No monuments, no inscriptions, no promotions of officers, no papyrus documents, nothing. This kind of silence is not unusual, not in an empire constantly at war. Many legions vanish from the historical record during turbulent periods, and in Roman history, silence usually means one thing: a legion suffered a catastrophic defeat in a remote region, a defeat so humiliating, Rome tried to bury it. So if the Ninth didn't fall in Britain, where did it fall? The leading theory today places the Ninth's final battle thousands of miles away, in Judea. Between 132 and 136 CE, the Bar Kokhba Revolt erupted, a brutal guerrilla war that pushed Rome to the brink. Entire Roman units were annihilated. Cassius Dio, a Roman historian, writes that one whole legion was destroyed, though he never names which. The rebellion was so devastating that Emperor Hadrian refused even to write victory speeches because the cost was too horrific to celebrate. A veteran legion like the Ninth would have been a logical choice to send as reinforcements. If the Ninth marched into Judea, the end would not have been cinematic or glorious. They may have been ambushed in a narrow canyon, massacred in the desert, or wiped out during one of the many brutal sieges. Their standards lost, their name stained, their legacy erased. Another strong possibility is the Parthian frontier. Rome and the Parthian Empire were locked in constant conflict over Armenia, a volatile buffer state between them. Campaigns in the east were notorious for devouring legions with little trace. During the Parthian War of 161 to 166 CE, the Romans suffered a major defeat early in the conflict. If the Ninth had been stationed on the eastern frontier after leaving the Rhine, they could have been among the first units destroyed. The confusion of the early war may have swallowed their final records. A legion lost in the east could easily disappear from history without leaving a trace. And then there's the minority theory, still clinging on, that argues the Ninth may have suffered a defeat in Britain, but later than originally believed. The idea is that the Nijmegen tiles were simply leftover supplies, and that the legion returned to Britain shortly before major uprisings around 122 to 130 CE. But this theory struggles against the overwhelming evidence. No inscriptions, no promotions, no records of officers, no literary references. Nothing survives to suggest the Ninth returned to Britain in any meaningful capacity. Most historians reject this scenario today. Rome had a method for dealing with embarrassing disasters. They erased them. A legion destroyed in disgrace might simply be removed from official lists to protect morale, honor, and imperial propaganda. It was a practice used more often than many people realize. By the reign of Marcus Aurelius, around 160 CE, the official legion rosters no longer list Legio IX Hispana. It didn't go missing. It was administratively dead. If a legion was simply disbanded or merged, we'd expect to see records, officer transfers, retirement notices, funerary inscriptions. We see none of that. The silence surrounding the Ninth is not administrative. It feels violent. So why does the myth of a doomed Scottish campaign endure? Because people love mysteries. We're drawn to the idea of an entire legion swallowed by the fog, a tragedy on the edge of the world where Roman order collapses into Celtic chaos. It's poetic, it's dramatic, it's cinematic. But the truth is more human and more tragic. The Ninth Legion didn't vanish into legend. They likely died in a brutal, forgotten war far from home, their deaths buried beneath the sands of Judea or the mountains of Armenia, their name quietly erased from imperial memory. After weighing all the evidence, most historians agree the Ninth Legion was not destroyed in Britain. It survived Britain, was redeployed to the continent, and met its end in the eastern provinces, most likely between 132 and 136 CE, during the Bar Kokhba Revolt. Not mystical, not magical, not a cinematic last stand, just a real military disaster, lost to time. And maybe that's the most haunting truth of all. So there you have it, The true story of Rome's missing legion, a legend corrected, a mystery narrowed, and a historical puzzle closer than ever to being solved. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, which ancient mystery should we unravel next? Thanks for watching, and stay curious.